Yep, we are good. So we are live on TikTok. Thank you guys. You've been very patient. And we are also live on Facebook. We're also live on LinkedIn. Also live on YouTube. So welcome, everybody. Good to see you. So today we are going to talk about, what's our topic today, Sonia?
So today, I don't know if you're already aware, but we have our workshop. I was going to say podcast.
Yeah.
We have our workshop coming up this Thursday, which is quite exciting. It's all about making large gifts to your loved ones, to your children. We obviously know that there is a threshold to how much you can gift, and obviously there's a time period involved. So we just want to clarify that, especially if you're a parent and you want to give your children property or large sums of cash. And nowadays, just highlighting on what you said before we started, there's a lot of parents that are trying to support. There are a lot of parents that are trying to support their children. You know, house prices are much higher now. Children are struggling when they come out of university to find a job. So parents are really stepping in to support their children. And some of that support is to also pass on the house or give large sums of cash for the day that they do pass away. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous now that you put the camera on me.
You got the camera on you already.
So we're just going to get started. Do you want to expand what you were saying earlier before we get started on the workshop?
The workshop topic is technically the bank of mum and dad, and most times what mum and dads tend to do is make large gifts to their children, especially to buy property or deposits towards property or share of property, whether that's to bless their children generally or for inheritance tax purposes, etc. But there is a much bigger problem where the older generation parents, grandparents are still funding their children, especially say up to age 45, sometimes even older, because just times are much harder. It's just the bottom line. It's much harder to get on the property ladder. It's much harder to just get started in business. It's just much harder to, when children are graduating from university, and not everyone's getting that superstar job for their first job or second job, and they're still struggling, and they're still trying to get on that career ladder, property ladder, life ladder. Okay, then there's marriage, etc., etc. So parents are still funding their children. And then we've got this challenge of a wealth transfer, which I guess is currently taking place, but is huge. You've got the so-called baby boomers, which are the 70s and 80s. And that wealth is probably multi-billions of pounds that will be transferred to your millennials, your Gen Zs, your Gen Xs, etc. And that transfer of wealth, how is it going to be done to be generationally efficient? And hence why we're talking about that. So even though the underlying topic is, well, what's the most efficient way to make gifts? There is a bigger problem in that context. And that's what Sonia was alluding to. Yeah.
So in our workshop, we're going to be covering multiple stuff in terms of inheritance tax, capital gains tax, other liabilities. And the main purpose of it is to help you safeguard your wealth whilst transferring these assets or these large sums of cash to your children. And you want to do it in the most tax efficient way as possible. So that's what we're mainly going to be discussing this Thursday. We also want to make it super interactive as well. In our last workshop, we had a quiz and got a lot of great feedback surrounding that, and people just enjoy it. And we had a lot of people attend and sign up especially. And I think it will be a great opportunity if you're thinking about transferring your home, because you've worked so hard to accumulate all of that wealth. And obviously every parent wants better for their children, and you'd want to be able to support your children. And you don't want inheritance tax to eat out that wealth that you have accumulated, instead of going directly to your children. I'm often mix up my words, sorry. Instead of that going directly to your children. So that's how we're just want to clarify that within the workshop, just give you more clarity on how to do that, because it is possible. A lot of people think, oh, I have to pay inheritance tax, but there's ways around it, and we're here to educate you and give you that knowledge.
I think it's the only tax where you actually have a choice to some degree if you pay it or not. It just depends on how early you take action. And the other side, it's not just those who are making gifts, it's also those who are due to receive, because there's so many different scenarios. I'll give you one example. Let's just say you're in a relationship and you're about to get married, or even if you're not about to get married, you're in a long-term relationship and you're going to receive funds or expect to receive funds or an inheritance from your parents. Most people I speak to would expect that wealth to stay in the family. And if there's a split, if there's a death, if there's a marriage and then a divorce, that wealth can actually go sideways, which is not always the best solution. And even worse, if you've got children, potentially if there's no planning in place, that your children could be disinherited from the wealth that you've and your parents have worked hard to accumulate. So ultimately, being a recipient is important. Another thing which is a big deal that's not talked about a lot is if the recipient is receiving some form of means-tested benefits. It can be a massive problem to protect the wealth, to stop the benefits from being removed, and just changing the way of life or third parties interfering. So that's a big deal as well. So taxes, yes, it's a big topic, but also just protection of that wealth, creating that generational impact is also a big deal. So if we don't know, then we just don't know. Yeah. And so that's one of the major topics that we're going to be addressing, both as a recipient and also those thinking about making the gift as well. A lot of parents have some form of wealth accumulated in their properties in the form of equity. And as parents, we love our children, we love our loved ones, we want to help, we want to gift, but we will find ways to make that happen. And ultimately, we speak to our friends and well-wishers and they'll say, oh, just make a gift to your family and reduce your wealth. It's not always as straightforward as that. And so our job is to make sure you are aware, then you can make the choice. That's the main thing about it. And so that this workshop is a much more, I'd say, cost-effective way, a more efficient way of you learning, and also getting to ask questions directly, because it'll be both of us on the workshop, really going into detail and answering your questions that you have. And as Sonia said, the last two were really, really good. The last one we did together, and it was actually exceptional. So hence where this topic, as much as it may not be, I don't know what the word to use here, fancy, and that's the right word, it's really important. And it's just another string to your bow that you should have in your financial education. Very, very crucial you have it. And a lot of lawyers may not be aware of this. Your GP, your general practitioners, okay? So you need to speak to a specialist and understand this so that there's no unnecessary trigger of a tax. And most of the time this is irreversible. So once it's done, it's done. The HMRC will want their money if you've made that transfer. It's not something you can just give back and say, oh, I didn't mean to do it. It doesn't work that way. Hence, again, having the knowledge.
Yeah.
All right.
And also, just because it just came to mind, I was thinking about that TikTok that you posted yesterday, about if you have a large property portfolio,
right,
and you'd want to be able to transfer that wealth to your children or your loved ones, knowing that there's what's the word? A restriction. That's the word you use. There's restrictions to gifting, especially the 325,000.
But when using trusts,
yes,
okay, yeah.
So we are going to touch on that a little bit inside the workshop. Do you want to just talk on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, trust is a real buzzword at the moment, and rightly so. But as Sonia said, one of the videos that really blew up was the periodic charges. And then one that I talked about yesterday was, if you're a property investor, the max you can put into a trust without triggering a tax event is £325,000 every 7 years. Now, most property investors have wealth more than £325,000. So if we're looking to gift to our loved ones in order to reduce inheritance tax, then that may not be the best way. So there are alternative structures. We touched on it on the last trust course, and alternative structures, is something we can definitely go into a little bit more. But that's one way of an efficient way of being able to pass down. And with the recent budget, depending on how you maintain your properties, because there's different ways, whether you're an investor or whether you're deemed as a trading business, depending on how you set yourself up, then you can claim certain types of relief. But one of the biggest hits on the budget side with relief is the business relief, where you could claim up to 100% of the value of the business for inheritance tax purposes, unlimited, with a big business anywhere in the UK or Europe. I think globally, actually, and that's changed to just £1 million. Don't quote me, but I think that's just limited to the UK and potentially just Europe. So that's a big difference, because when most business owners, if they've been well established for a while, your business is going to be worth more than £1 million. And if it's just one name on there, now you've got to find ways of being creative to allow no inheritance tax to be paid. Else there's still going to be some form of a challenge. So again, if you're thinking of gifting shares in your business, thinking of gifting cash, equity in your property, or whatever else you may have in mind, I really believe you need to just hear us out, get the knowledge, and then make some better choices, or even challenge your advisors and ask more questions before making that final decision. Really, really important.
Thank you, Richard.
No problem.
And just to touch on like the basics of gifting, what is the main reason why people choose to gift?
I think well, as a parent, I'm going to speak for myself. If I'm going to want to gift to my child because I know they want or need help, and if I have the ability to do something, and as any parent would do, then they're going to try and find a way to make it work. Now, it could be, you want them on a ladder. Maybe their rent's too high. Maybe they've moved too often, with landlords being a bit meticulous and not very friendly. Maybe you want to give them a step up to create their own wealth. So if they buy property now, especially in London, it's typically the only way is up in terms of house prices. So you're setting them up for the future. So you want to gift. Now, other parents may also at the same time feel like, well, if I can gift to my loved ones, then I'm reducing the value of my estate by 7 years, and that's it. But unfortunately, it's not that straightforward. But that's why I would gift anyway, to answer Sonia's question, because I love my children. I want to give them a helping hand. We already mentioned this in the news already about parents are funding their children for whatever reason. It was the other way around once upon a time, and not anymore. So we got to really think more about how we, be more strategic about how we gift.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Also in the workshop, we're going to touch on like the allowances as well, surrounding gifting. So if you want to know a bit more about that, I think it's really important that you join. Is there anything else that you want to speak about before I get into the technicalities of the workshop?
I think we've covered most of it. It is specifically about, we call it the bank of mum and dad. That's a generic term. But how can we do it without triggering unnecessary taxes and be very strategic and efficient in the way we make gifts? Because ultimately gifts need to be made. Parents want to reduce their inheritance tax. There's something called generational inheritance tax. If you have to pay it once, let's make sure it's not paid twice on the same asset. That's just horrible. So again, we're going to cover stuff like that, and then it's a chance for you to ask us questions, because you just never know. Yeah, you just never know. So that's really all I can say, because it's a very narrow topic. I don't want to just talk about everything. Yeah, it might bring other subjects into the fore, and you might have questions about other things in your mind that might be related to this, even abroad. That could be a topic that might come up. So for now, we're just keeping it very focused. So your learning is just quite strategic in that perspective.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard. So to get into the workshop this Thursday, so it's this Thursday, 28th of November at 7:30 p.m. It is online. The TikTok, you can turn it this way.
Oh, yes.
So it is online. The workshop, it's at 7:30 p.m. It is £47, but it's not the price. It's an investment into how you can create and build generational wealth. Yeah.
And you keep that recording. It's not like one and done. You got it for as long as you need it.
Exactly. So I wouldn't say if the price is something that is making up, oh, well, it's an investment for you, your future, and your family, for your children, for your loved ones. So it would be really nice to see you there on this Thursday, 7:30 p.m. online. The link is in our stand store, in our bio, and our profile. We'll basically be speaking about everything to do with gifting large and properties. It's going to be a very interactive session. We're going to have questions, a Q&A session, an interactive quiz, and you will learn a lot and take away a lot from this.
And even if you're busy,
it's fine. You can continue
because I know you got the children or cooking dinner and stuff like that. You got the replay, so don't feel like, oh, I can't make it, so I'm not going to turn up.
Still sign up
because this is the lowest price it's going to be. Number one, or the lowest investment. So still get the register. You get the replay, so you can watch it in your own time. And even then, you can email me or email us if you've got questions in advance, and we make sure we'll address it. So don't feel like, oh well, I can't make it, so I'm not going to turn up. But still take advantage of the offer. I think it will be beneficial to everyone.
And I feel like maybe I'm hoping there's a lot of people are watching this live right now that want to start creating generational wealth for generations to come. Maybe you weren't able to inherit anything, and you'd love for your children to inherit and your grandchildren to inherit, and you want that to last for generations. And the best way to maintain and preserve that wealth is through strategic planning. In order to keep that wealth like sealed, just so it doesn't go sideways or it's not gone to tax. I think there's a saying that generational wealth only lasts about, is it 3 generations?
Yeah, exactly.
It only lasts about 3 generations, and
without strategic planning. So
if you have that strategic planning in place, it could probably go up to about 5 generations
or more. Which is what you want.
That's how the rich stay rich. They are able to inherit. I remember I was watching this TV show. What was it called again? It was Rich House, Poor House.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard about it. And there was this man. He was able to inherit his family home. He had like a large acres of land, and he said it was all protected through trusts and also through gifting. And I think that's just a really eye-opening thing to see, to be able to have that for generations. So whatever the hard work you've gone through to accumulate what you have, maybe that your children or your grandchildren don't have to go through that similar hard work that you had to accumulate that wealth.
And a lot of people say to me, oh, I'm not rich, I don't need it yet. I don't think it's about being rich to start planning. It's whatever you have, you can start where you are. And I think where the wealth starts is with your knowledge. It's not with what you have. With your knowledge, you can accumulate whatever you want. The wealth is really in you, not the pounds and signs in your bank account. So ultimately, if you start with where you are because you have a plan to better your family, start with knowledge. Then your strategic planning can be so much more powerful. With whatever it might be. It could just be a life insurance policy, but you can still plan in the right way. You can still help your children to make better decisions for themselves, and your grandchildren for themselves, and so on and so forth. So I really would urge you not to look at where you are right now in terms of, some people say, I don't have that much to give away, and I'm not that rich, which is all relative in my opinion. But at the end of the day, if your heart is to bless your children with whatever you have and you're working hard for that purpose, then you need to really start with your education yourself. Then you can make the informed choice going forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Richard. We do hope to see you there this Thursday. If you'd like any more information, please don't hesitate to email us at pwadmin, or you can comment in the comment section and just get in touch and ask your questions. We will be discussing a lot. It's very detailed in our stand store. So if you visit our stand store, you'll see the description of what we'll be discussing, the topics we'll be touching on, and how it would ultimately be beneficial for you to be there to learn, know more, and spread that knowledge to create generational wealth.
Definitely. And invite your friends, family members to join.
That'd be great.
Sign up and take part in the learning. It'd be very beneficial. All right. Well,
But we can keep the TikTok on for a little longer.
Okay.
But the podcast, thank you so much.
Cheers, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Right. Have